All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dawn.
Let's see. Let's get to the right slide too. Like it's been a morning. I wish I could even like talk about what happened at 8 o'clock, but that's another time. So, are we recording?
We are recording, and you probably don't want me to
Yep.
tell
All
you
right.
it's afternoon now in our neck of the woods.
Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon. Here we are. I've been in like my cave. So good afternoon. It is MVP office hours. Here to see everybody. We're very excited. And June 19th. Is that right? Oh my gosh. It's June 19th. It's Friday. It's Friday. For those of you who haven't visited us before, you can follow us on Twitter at MVP Office Hours, and Dale is here also, and Squire's here also. And you can always find out more information at mvpofficehours.info also. Over on our, let's see, under the events, we have all sorts of virtual events happening, no in-person events. We're having a virtual lifestyle right now. Is everyone doing okay with that? I hope so. But the customer success event calendar, there's a link in the deck, and then there's also, oh goodness, some upcoming Dreaming events that are going to be community led. Do we have word on Surf Force and Philly Force? Are they moving forward virtual, or are they postponing? Does anyone know? Squire, Dale?
Last time I looked, they had not updated their sites to say one way or the other.
Okay, so we're holding on. We're holding on for some hope here. And then there's the we've got a link for the Salesforce events that are virtual with Salesforce coming forward. And you know, as always, you know, take a peek with your community groups, because we're having lots of virtual community group meetings, and it's a great time to meet some other people. Whether it's local or it's somewhere else entirely, it might actually work better with your work schedule. But you can meet and interact with lots of new people, because we've all gone virtual. So if you haven't joined a Trailblazer group, do that quick at success.salesforce.com. And then don't forget to find MVP office hours also. Did I get everything? Maybe?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. So we'll slide to the next slide here. There's also global MVP office hours, and that is on the last Thursday of the month. Our US office hours are the first and third Friday usually. We're going to trip over the first Friday in July and push that back to the second Friday, if I had read the schedule correctly. And then the Portuguese office hours are the last Thursday of the month also. And you can follow the things going on there on their Twitter handles, MVP office hours for the US, EMEA_MVP, or MVP OH Portuguese.
And Carlos, since we have you,
Carlos
you want
to
take a quick minute and pitch the Portuguese hours?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Yes, even though the title says Portuguese, we have all sort of people coming through. A lot of people from US, MVPs, no MVPs, people from India, Europe speak Spanish. We do the translation, and it's very important to, so the people that speak Portuguese around the world to feel included. So if you have a chance, join us last Thursday of the month. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and so moving along, we do want to make sure we welcome everyone, and then our next office hours is going to be July 10th. So we're going to skip the first Friday of July, because that is the July 3rd, precursor to, the 4th of July holiday, which may or may not be significant this year. I don't know. Are we going to have fireworks? What's going to happen?
If
no
any
parades,
of us even know it's July,
locally.
it'll be a miracle.
So there's that. And you can always register at our bit.ly MVPOHUS. Just some basic rules. Everybody participates. We want you to share your experience, input recommendations and references. While you're not speaking, please go ahead and mute yourself. If you'd like to ask a question, raise your hand in the participant chat screen, And then unmute yourself, introduce yourself, let us know who you are, and then use the chat to post any resources that you might scramble to pick up while we're talking about some issues. And you can share your screen, just be very careful, because when you share your screen, we can see everything. And because we're recording on YouTube, you want to make sure that the information you share is shareable and is in a sandbox, preferably, or even in a dev org, preferably. So just make sure you're not sharing any confidential information. And if you can't, or if you don't consent to being recorded, then it's time for you to say bye. Bye, we'll miss you. Come back another time. All right. Do we have any MVPs on the call? We've got Carlos is here, and Becca's here, and Dale and Squire and I. We've got a small group today. I like it. I like it. All right. Are we ready to like just dig in? Do we have any questions to start?
I don't think there were any hanging out in the success group. I think that's all resolved.
Good start.
Yeah, there was a really good conversation there about some like large data extracts and a good conversation there, but nothing new.
Right.
So I ran into like, and I can't even screen share with you because like I haven't even like, it's not broken in my sandbox. It's broken in production. I can't get a dashboard to only show up for certain people. And I keep going back and forth around it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it just needs to take some time to refresh somewhere behind the curtain. So I'm waiting on that. But Marty, come on, you got to have something.
No, my question was about Trailhead X being recorded because my power is going to be out all day Thursday.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, because I live in a fire zone and they're trying to fix stuff before a fire gets
Gotcha.
bad. But it's going to be hard with no power, nowhere to go.
How long are you going to be without power, Marty?
They say from 8 to 5. And we have
Wow.
I'm still in an area where like no libraries, no Starbucks, no anything. So it's gonna be a fun.
Sorry.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
go sit in
And
the car somewhere. It's
yeah. And the generator isn't something you're going to run out and get, I guess.
Yeah,
That's a tough one. It's a tough one. And so we don't have any answers about Trailhead DX or Trailhead X. Help me with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's being recorded now.
Well, so we don't know, because if you go look at the agenda, there are several repeats of same sessions that I'm pretty sure presenters aren't going to do multiple times, which would make you then think they released the recordings. But I don't know. I haven't seen anything official that says yes or no.
And I thought what I thought I had read was that the circles of success would be recorded for review, which I would assume then they'd all be. But you're right. If there's multiple sessions, you'd think that they maybe are already recorded and they're going to just post them. So.
Hope so. Thank you.
Yep.
I just put the link to register in the chat in case anybody's interested.
I got to offer, I like the way they organize DX a little bit more than Virtual Dreamin'. There's the gaps and the breaks between the sessions make it a little bit less like you're trapped at your computer for 20 straight hours. So I hope that something in between those two, like longer sessions but breaks, will be something we can use more of. But
Right.
any
So
questions? Oh, no,
if nobody, oh, yeah, go ahead, Christy.
Yay, thank you. Sorry I joined late. I have one question. So my company has a newer instance of Salesforce, and so the subsidiary that I had worked for, that Salesforce runs out mid-July. And so I've exported out all the data, but I cannot figure out how to actually open the attachments / files that were in there. And someone's nodding their head. They probably know the answer that I need.
it's not a good one. So you want to be able to see them to load them into the new org? Is that what you're trying to do with them?
No, but I need to be able to see them because we had pricing files. A lot of them were PDFs and they were pricing files, and I really don't want to spend the next 2.5 weeks downloading each and every one.
Yeah, okay. Different problem, similar box of hornets. I don't have an answer for that one. I know that they download as blobs, and there's some readers that can help with that, but I'm not entirely sure. Dale?
Okay.
No idea. I'm
You
more
guys deal with
like
it?
I'm sympathizing with Christy because I used to work for that company, so I'm just imagining what she's about to go through. So, but I have no solutions. I'm sorry.
It's all right. If you find one, chat or email me, just because it was like 1.1 gigabytes of files.
Right. I know some people who have attempted to custom write scripts, and it wasn't an overly fruitful endeavor. I might be able to reach out to some people offline to see if they ventured any further, but I hate to say you might be looking at a purchase tool. I don't know that there'd be anything free immediately readily available that you would also want assurance on that you're grabbing the right files.
Okay,
Because
well,
the people that I've talked to that have tried to do it, they knew they had to get every file, so they just said, do it.
got it. Yeah,
So.
no, at least I have time because I have till July 15th, so that's good.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
would offer drop that question or we'll drop the question I guess into our group, but there is the data recovery group, even though data recovery itself is gone, might have some feedback in their success group about how to handle those, because they're answering questions about how to do extracts and how to do reloads and what are you going to get when you do a full data extract. So you could start there too.
Oh, great. Thank you. I wrote that down as well to look into that this week. I just figured, well, I'll ask on the call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's this voice in my head, Dale, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if Stu were on, he'd know exactly what to say. I bet you he's dealt with this.
Oh, absolutely. And he'd come in and say, well, you just need to stop making it sound so simple.
James, you posted something long, and I think rather than reread it, I'll let you just take it away. Do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sorry. I was on the session last time, and I had a problem that was stopping me that I need to have a process builder flow that was created by a contractor called a flow, and get the results back from that flow with updated fields. It was on a task, and I wasn't able to get the subflow to come back for further processing in the main process builder flow. The suggestion was to convert the main process builder flow logic into a flow and then call out to the subflow, and that worked like a champ. And actually it helped me a little bit because I was able to also add some fault trapping so that if the final update, what was going on is we have a Vonage phone system, a new Vonage phone system, and the phone call comes in recorded that there was a phone call on a task, and we needed to do updates on leads that resulted from phone dial dispositions. And so it was very helpful. Thank you so much for your suggestion.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's
Good
awesome.
to hear that.
Absolutely.
There's a win, yay.
No other hands or comments, but there's got to be something poking at your brains out there.
So I'm going to call out my buddy from Kansas City here, Daniel. You had posted or asked a question on a thread somewhere about Google connectors. Still, or anything that you're still looking for on that?
Hi, thanks, Dale. So the question was, we need to make this old. If it's in Lightning, it's pretty easy, right? Use Gmail, but they want to email out of Classic with and hide that via Salesforce.com. So we're trying to set up the email relay. Everything seems pretty easy in Salesforce. I don't know that there's anything I could do differently. The directions are pretty clear, albeit they're 7 years old. But there's not a lot I can do. So whatever is broken seems to be they don't have the right IP addresses, but it's on the Gmail side, right? The Gmail admin has a lot more to do with that.
So to say back to you some of the things I heard. So setting up the relay to Gmail is fine, but once you get to Gmail, you're having challenges passing through the Gmail IP ranges. Is it because the settings on Gmail aren't accepting the relay from Salesforce, or is it the other way around that Salesforce doesn't allow you to send to the Gmail relay?
Right. So I don't have access to the Gmail admin account. I don't have that. So
Gotcha.
everything, as far as I can see, there's nothing left for me to do, and it's up to that Gmail admin to configure. Right? There's only a limited amount of things you can do from the Salesforce side.
Yeah, I mean, once you set up the relay connection, and if there is an IP range that has to be whitelisted so you can send to it,
Yep.
After that you're kind of done. Then it's the rest. We've had the same challenges on our side, just because we have we have multiple relays based on region. It's called something that I can't think of right now because I haven't had as much coffee as I thought. But our ranges are broad and change pretty dramatically, and so we've had to have that kind of repetitive cycle of, do we have everything set up just right, and then go back through. So not a fun exercise when you don't have the right person or the right access to just make it happen. So
Thank you.
sorry.
I kind of confirmed my suspicion that it's not on me.
Right.
It's a submit a ticket type thing, and they've just got to type in a lot of IP addresses.
And I would make sure, if you've got a wiki or an IT support desk that handles that all the time, make sure they have the URL to the whitelist doc, because it's updating all the time. But nope, it's not a really great process to tell the world that they did update it.
Okay.
So then, that's your first challenge, is if relays are bouncing, remind them to check the doc and see if the update date has changed, and then change their ranges. So.
And so then I'll ask a follow-up. If once you have the IP range or specific IP address, is that for Salesforce to whitelist or for Google?
So you have to whitelist the relay endpoint so that it can respond back and say that it accepted it. You get that bounce back of, because Salesforce sends and then it gets a response back in the email log, and that comes from the relay endpoint. You won't be able to accept that bounce back. But then the relay itself also has to accept the Salesforce range as well.
Gotcha. And so anything that needs to be updated on the Salesforce side, Daniel, do you know where you would update that?
Yeah, that's
in
email
there.
relay and the domain acceptable. It's just asterisks. I didn't limit anything, so.
Gotcha. Just thinking that as you're waiting for your Gmail administrator, obviously, what can you get done while you wait and potentially have stubbed out and ready to go? Just some of those touch points, but yeah.
Good luck. Keep us informed if you find anything new there.
Thank you.
You bet. Dana, you are up next.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dana, and I'm a Salesforce administrator for Securian Financial in St. Paul, Minnesota. This is my first time attending one of these MVP hours.
Welcome.
So, I'm somewhat new to Flows. I created a pretty basic one. On basically what it does is it creates a new case from an existing case, updates the record type, puts it in a new queue, updates a few other fields. I'd like to pull in the contact roles, and I haven't figured that out. And just from like Googling it and looking through Trailhead, it looks like I probably need to use a loop. So I'm just want to confirm that that's what I need to do, that it's possible. And do you guys have any places to look? That the flows I saw online are pretty large, and I'm just looking for something that's a little simpler that I could kind of use as a guide.
So obviously simple is better. What are you using the contact roles for? Like what happens downstream from all of this?
Well, they are probably, they're advisors. So somebody might be a primary advisor on the case. Somebody else, they might have another advisor that works on it but isn't primary. the people that are the processors that are using this case, we call them service requests, use those contacts to follow up on questions they have and things that they need to review for the like new applications and such that are coming in. Does that help?
Yeah, that's a start. It's I mean, so flows, as I'm sure you've seen, can be as complex as anybody can make them, but the goal is to make them simple. And so knowing that contact roles, how that object is structured, potentially leads to simplifying. We just need to know, you would just need to know what that information is then being used for. If one contact role needs a follow-up task assigned to them, that's a decision in your loop of, okay, I've picked up this role, I need to create a task for them because that's business process. And then a secondary contact, I don't need a task, but maybe I need something else, whatever. But that's gonna, if we know what all the touch points for that information or what the downstream requirements are.
It's actually really basic. They just need to have them listed on the case. They won't be setting up tasks for the,
okay,
you know, the roles or anything like that. It's very simple.
So when you say on the case, are they fields on the case?
The contact roles?
Yes, like, so I mean, so you're taking whoever those contact roles are from the contact role object under the case, correct?
Yeah, I just want to add those same contact roles to the new case. So I'm not putting them in fields. I just want them to be able to see the same related list in the new case that you could see in the old case.
Okay, so that's the end-to-end. I mean, it should just be, you know, what case. Are you cloning the case within the flow?
It's pretty much what I'm doing. Is just creating a new case, but I'm updating, changing the record type, changing the queue, and changing the type and maybe a couple other fields. I'm pulling in that will have the same information as the original one, but basically I'm just creating it for a different team that has a different queue and a different record type.
Got it. So what that helps us understand is we're going to know the ID of the original case, and then we're going to know the ID of the new case that gets created. Yep. Those are going to be important pieces of information. It should just then be you do a fast lookup to get all contact role records where case ID is the original case ID.
Okay.
Store those into a collection variable, and then should just be, I mean, I would probably, I think there's debate on whether you would do an assignment or just a fast create, but fast create that collection and assign case ID as the new case ID. So you'd clone the case first, so you have old and new variables. Fast lookup to get the old contact role records. Fast create to duplicate them on the new case record.
Okay.
Did I get that right, Squire?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I would offer, I don't know if there is much debate. I would offer that using a collection and an assignment is the right way to do it, because then you just do one upsert. You know, you don't really know how many is going to come through. And you have some control there too to be able to even assess each record to say, like you might, like to your earlier comment, Dale, you might then say, oh, by the way, if a role equals X when I'm inserting it to that table, do another thing. You could add that all as part of one big continuous flow, versus the quick create would then you'd have to pull them all again and then do something else with them. So, but yeah, everything's right.
Okay. So I have a, does anybody know now that from release to release, we're getting clone with related? Is case one of those objects, and is contact roles one of those related objects that gets automatically cloned?
I was thinking the same thing. I'm hoping someone knows.
Who can Google the fastest?
There you have it.
Right, Squire's gonna know in a second.
You're gonna hear me tapping away because I wanted to know.
We could hear Google thinking for you.
Because Dana, what we're thinking on that is that potentially replaces your flow through a native clone to then it's, if you need to update record type, that's a little bit of automation, but you're not having to go through cloning everything.
Okay. Okay.
The Service Cloud documentation doesn't suggest it clones the other stuff like Opportunity does now, so maybe it's on the roadmap.
Gotcha.
And if I can just add one thing, I think I do this a lot, but I just want to make sure, because I have a team of admins who I'm very proud of, and they are very quick to say, it's a very simple flow, or I just got to do this. But I think it's really important that every flow is at its core, like it's DML, it's SOQL queries, it's object-oriented programming with an interface, and you should definitely be proud of any sort of flow that's built, because it takes skill and knowledge to do it right, regardless of what the scope of that flow is. And iterating with a I'll say straightforward and not simple flow of, say, I just want to take this case and make another case, and then learn how to add a loop and learn how to add the assignments and all those things. I mean, it's getting to the point now, I was just saying in a meeting this week that we might not need a developer anymore in a year, because flow is becoming as good, if not better, than programmatic triggers and Apex in a variety of ways. Now, we're going to need a developer. I don't want to say that, but it's getting better and better. And so I think just be proud and confident in anything you write, and use it as a learning opportunity to go to the next level, and keep asking questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right.
Janet, you're up.
Right. So I think I have an answer to this, but I'm going to challenge anyways, and see if maybe you guys can poke a hole in this. So I think if I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 second.
All right. Let's go to over here. Okay. So I am in our sandbox, so it should be good. Are you guys able to see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have, we're in the process of creating a new process to onboard our employees. I work for an Epic consulting company based in Madison, Wisconsin. So we've got kind of our different record types in here. And so within there, what they do is they come in on the onboarding request, they enter all these fields, get everything we need. But then we have a process so that if something needs to change from when originally it was input, they go through putting it through a change request over here, just for the sake that we don't want people randomly coming in and editing information and not telling people when something got done. They're accustomed to something similar to this process in the previous version. So my question is in here, we can send notifications from the onboarding request, like when it's created or a status changes. And we have, for example, in this case, our Bluetree manager in here. If they come over and they create a change request, what they want to do is that when I create a change request, that Bluetree manager also gets notified when a request is created, approved, or rejected. So I've attempted to, in my alert, in my email alert, I have no place, even if I had Bluetree manager selected on my change request object. It's on my onboarding request object. I can get it over here, but even when I could get it over here, because I'm bringing it over with a formula that it equals that field, everything I've read says it needs to be an email field in order for me to put it on my email alert. Is that correct?
Kinda. It needs to, in order to leverage a user, it would have to be the user field itself and on that object.
Okay. So, because over here, it is just, so it's a lookup to the user field over here. But yeah, when I bring it over here to the change request, then I'm doing a formula, which makes it no longer an email field, which means I can't select it.
Right. Now,
Okay.
what you could do, though, since you're already in workflow land, is if that change request is a child object to that parent object, you could start with a workflow rule field update that grabs, well, yeah, theoretically, that grabs the user ID from that parent object and then populates on the child object.
Okay.
And then on field updates, there's a checkbox that says reevaluate workflow rules.
Right.
Then you have the email, a workflow with the email alert that then leverages the user fields you just populated on the child record. Now, as I talk through that, I want to, can you pass lookup IDs and especially users through that process? I'm wondering if that's maybe a process builder action. You're on mute, Squire.
Squire's on mute, yeah.
You should be able to, even if you're not referencing it the way a process would, you should be able to, with the flow, go get its related value and just add it to the object you're building.
Okay.
Right. Well, and she was in workflow land. That was what I was questioning.
Yeah.
Can you do that with workflow? But I think you
Yeah,
may have to go to
haven't
process
quite hit
builder for
the
that.
process builder flow land. So when you say like, we don't even have a developer right now. So, and I inherited this, inherited our org with another person, and we're just trying to poke through it as best as we can. And everybody wants everything yesterday. So yeah, I'm still hanging out over here.
Well, so I have a follow-up question on that, because if you are just using workflow and you don't want to dive directly into flow and process, is the change request an action, or is it the standard new button?
It's a new button.
Because you could probably use an action on your on the standard object. I'm sorry, where were you? What was this? Is this a case, or what is this?
It's a custom object, actually.
Okay.
So the onboarding request is a custom object, and then so is change request.
So you could create a child record with a custom action and pull in the actual value into the change request on save. So it would actually be there like you'd added it, not as a formula.
Okay.
But no one would have to do that. It would just be pre-populated on save. And when you close the loop, then it'd be like, oh yeah, I added, sorry, I got my screens too small, but so I want to say, I added Corin to this change request, even though I didn't, but it looks and acts like you did.
Okay.
And then when it saves, then you can go right to the process you're comfortable with or the way it's been written, which is just, oh, I actually do have an email field now. Move forward.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a little bit of data validation and not security, but you want to make sure that if it is an editable field, people don't accidentally edit it or delete it or modify it over time. But it would save you until you're ready to jump into that process flow work. It might save you a step or two.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot. Because yeah, I mean, typically, the person who is here is the hiring manager. So that wouldn't typically change. And each time there's a new employee that comes on board, they're going to create a new onboarding request. Essentially right now, everything is being done through email. So we're going to hire this person, email back and forth, trying to condense everything eventually with the intent that all of our legal agreements will be generated out of DocuSign with Salesforce and floating through the loop that way, and kind of keeping it all in one spot. So
cool. And I can't help but mention, Janet, that there's some really smart people in your neck of the woods that could help you with it if you need more time.
Awesome. Thank you. I think Jen and Brian
and Squire in Milwaukee.
I was thinking Jen and Brian, but yes.
Jen's right around the back door from where I'm at. So,
yeah. I guarantee she could build this in her sleep. So if you need to bounce some ideas off her, she's more than happy.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
I work with Jen. I'm going to go ping her on Slack and ask if her ears are burning.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, Jen Romanizak Kant and Jen Bowen both are great resources. Hit either one of them up.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Do we have anyone else?
Nothing.
With their hand up? Nothing?
Everybody's
nothing.
We're in the summer groove of not much.
You're all documenting everything and updating your descriptions on all your fields. Is that what's going on?
I like where your
documentation.
I am actually taking pictures of all formula fields and process builder stuff of the Oregon decommissioning. Just in case I need to reuse stuff.
There you go.
If it might be a great opportunity if you are doing that and it's a mindless and long task. Elements has a free trial of Org Documenter that they might be more than happy to not only show you how to use it, but give you some output. And even if you can't invest in it later, it might be something you could use in the future.
I will look at that on App Exchange.
It's a standard package from what is it? It's q.elements.com, I think. Is their,
Elements.cloud.
Yeah. And you connect. It's a free app, and if you want to pay for it, you can connect it to a Salesforce org and use it to document everything. But they have some free trials, and they're really good people. They probably show you how to use it, and maybe even give you a free taste for this project, so that next time you need it, you might be able to invest in it.
Cool. Thanks.
I participated last night in the Document Your Org put on by Michelle Hansen out of Chicago. They had some really good tips and tricks and stuff like that as it talks about documentation, considering we don't have very much. But I can post the link to that presentation in the chat.
Absolutely. Oh, I would love that.
Awesome. We use Lucidchart at Seven Summits, and I don't know if it's because we have a paid license or if you'd be able to get it for free, but they have an integration with Salesforce that would allow you to extract an ERD, your object model, and some of those other things that might be worth looking into as well.
I just started using Lucidchart for some of my ERDs, but never the integration. So it might be time to look into that deeper.
My tech lead loves it. It comes out really clean. It's really solid.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize Father's Day weekend was such a big deal. I mean, we have no work going on. I mean, we're like all ready to take off early. Like, no, my household's shutting down and everything. So
just because we didn't have a call right before Mother's Day, geez.
No, that's not what I mean at all. We were all working on that Friday before Mother's Day. It was just didn't realize like work shut down because it's funny.
Well, so I think it might also be worth calling out. Today is Juneteenth, and several organizations very quickly jumped on taking this as a holiday, as they should. So that could be part of it.
I think you are onto something there, but then we should have more people on the call, but no one wants to talk about work on a holiday. So
right. Well, so, okay, if you don't want to talk about work on a holiday, I will just throw out there completely unrelated to Salesforce. My wife, my almost 14-year-old and I, a couple of nights ago, watched The Hate U Give.
Ooh, how was it?
Oh my goodness, it was so good. My wife read the book however long ago, but the movie was so incredibly well done. We sat back very stunned and just silent, because that's not a life that we live, and we need to definitely appreciate those that do. It was incredibly well done.
I have not heard of that. Thank you for the title.
It was on Prime, I think. Might even be free on Prime.
So Daniel has dropped a thought bomb on us.
He's good at that.
Oh no.
Yeah. So is there a admin checklist for a new solo admin to get started for best practices?
You got two former solo admins on the call here. I can tell you I never built that. Did you, Joy?
I have a draft of a document, but it was more about the solo admin checklist for exiting.
Nice.
But Daniel, I could possibly get that cleaned up, because the exit is as important as the setup though, and they're pairs, right? And so one of the things I think as a solo admin is just to protect yourself moving forward, and to make sure that you have a system admin user license to connect all of your craziness to, instead of you as an individual, so that when you do your data loads, when you have your processes, everything is pointing to a user license that not you as a person. That was actually one of the things that I had done at a previous employer. And it certainly saved me a lot of time in the untanglement. So my exit was actually much easier because I didn't have to spend 2 weeks untangling all of those things and reassigning those to someone else. So Daniel, you have just taken me to task. So, and I promise there will be something, but scalability is huge. And is it a new org, Daniel, or is it an existing org? What's your?
I guess I'll talk instead of.
Yes, please.
It's an existing org with several consultants have had their fingers in it. One of the first things I did was take out 11 system admins that were existing who are no longer active. So
I'm proud of you.
There's a lot of there was a lot of going backwards before I could go forwards. So
yeah.
But now I have the chance to put in best practices and say this is how I would like it to go now, But to your point, sort of, if I could set up a sort of automated user as the name of the I don't know, person, instead of being a system admin, just be automated user, and so on all the reports or any identification, it would be this guy is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Like SFDC admin at yourdomain.com. And then ask your IT folks for the email address that matches. And that was how I ran things as a solo admin. It made things a lot easier because when folks were replying to like a system admin situation or automated email, it went there and I knew exactly why, as opposed to when I had really, really unfortunately had another org pointing to me, Joy. And so I would get emails and it was all like crisscross and I couldn't tell like what it all was coming from. And so that would be a great first step. And then the other thing is just making sure you understand all of your profiles. I don't know how many users you have or how many profiles you have, but making sure you understand the permissions that are associated with all those folks, about who can edit your reports and your report folder sharing. Gosh, what else is there? There's a lot going on, but I think really mapping out what you have to start with is going to be huge, and understanding all those folks. List views are another sneaky permission that will mess your people up.
So yeah, definitely that. I would also say, as you're building all of this, so now that I understand the question, I did the same thing, had a dummy user, like the admin user, whatever you want to call it. That's one huge thing. Another thing, as you're building what all of that documentation is, if it's like an exit plan, like Joy was saying, my favorite thing to do on Friday afternoons when I was an admin is say, I'm serious, no meetings. And I would just crack open Data Loader. Because did you know list views are an object that you can extract out and learn what's what? Start to go study all of that data that is in the org so that you can start to put together. It really does help put that documentation together to say, here's all the things that are in this org. That's one piece. Another piece then is document it right in Salesforce, whether it's obviously the help text and the description fields that they give you, but also don't be shy about creating your own custom object or custom objects and make that documentation data. And so that then as you continue to implement change management, if you stay there or if you hand it off to somebody else, then it's just right there in the org to just say, and now that I've deployed this, I got to go create a new detail record on my custom object that says on June 19th, 2020, I updated these things. Here's why, here's the reason. And
so a custom object of release notes.
Yeah, essentially.
You can use case too. It works really well.
Cases. Yep.
Good.
Audit log is one of my favorite things for catching what I did. So you can always like pull that down and be like, oh, this is a great place to start, and I can add color to that. Especially if it, you know, you're going back and forth between things and just making sure you catch all your stuff.
The only thing I would offer, I mean, these are great ideas, and I know that it's easy to say this, but it doesn't always work this way, is sometimes those best practices come from understanding your company or your firm's intention of the platform, and then you build from there. So while there's some things like some tactical things that are going to help make sure that you don't drop a ball or are working from behind, like for instance, when I started my first Salesforce job as a system or a sole admin, I went into it with the idea that, hey, we're spending a lot of money on a platform with native tools and features and functionality that will be sustained and maintained because of the money we're spending. So we're not going to build new functionality. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're not going to write code until we've exhausted the platform's features. And if you start with kind of that type of vision statement, if you can make that happen, your best practices start to kind of turn into things. You're like, oh yeah, we're gonna leverage this. We're gonna use flow instead of triggers. We're gonna make sure we load data with a system admin because we want to make sure we have data quality and data validation rules in mind. Like it almost like builds itself if you could start from the top. On the other hand, if you're flying in from, you know, parts unknown and you have to do the stuff that Dale and Joy are talking about, then it's nice to have that other checklist of like, well, I just got to make sure that I know exactly what I'm dealing with and how I'm going to deal with it, and make sure that my butt's covered when it's time to leave. So yeah, it works both ways.
Well, and the other side of having that checklist, if you do, like Joy and I were talking about, is if you have that checklist at least pre-canned, and you're brand new in an org that you've inherited or whatever, you can say, or you can go to your powers that be to say, all right, you brought me in to clean this up. Here's the things I'm going to do. I'm going to need to go do some data analysis and do some interviews, which is going to require X amount of time. And you can start to roadmap out and provide real tangible data for whoever to say, this is how long it's going to take and in the order I'm going to have to go. And you kind of build your own project out of it. To then also understand, they're not bringing you in to clean up your org or to just do that. They're going to want you to do new development as well. You'll be armed with all these tools and information to say, in my 40 hours a week or 36 or 32, whatever you allow yourself to actually spend doing work versus administrative stuff, you can start to say, here's my capacity. Here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. Here's when it's going to happen. Data is your friend, and data comes in all shapes and sizes and forms. Make it for your own, use what you have access to. But if you start with that checklist, you're already halfway there, and then you just got to pop in what the numbers are.
Yeah, I will say Field Trip is one of the apps that was
Love
really
Field
great
Trip.
when I tripped into an org that was 15 years old and had multiple consultants and multiple non-admin users adminning. And you know, to get in there and clean things up and to see what the heck was actually being used and what wasn't. So that's another tool that you can take a look at and run some inventory.
I would, yep, love Field Trip. I'd also throw Octopus in there. Octopus will go through and scour. It's either the description or the help text fields, one or the other. But it'll go through your whole org and then produce a PDF or a Word doc or maybe even Excel of what has been populated, what hasn't, as a starting point, and it's free on the App Exchange.
Becca, do you want to speak to that a little bit more? That's really good information.
I didn't want to interrupt because I was still stuck like so many conversations ago. I have worked with a client that had several integrations. You know, you've got your ERP system, you've got, I mean, there's so many things that you can integrate with. We had Pardot, LinkedIn, and for each one, we had a separate user. It was an admin user, and whatever permissions were needed for that specific integration, those are the permissions that user got. They could only see the fields that they needed to see and not more than that. Could only read and write to certain things. If there were fields on an object that, say, Pardot needed to write to, but nobody else did, then Pardot would get the read write permissions and nobody else would have them. Just that kind of thing. So it's expensive because you're wasting a license for every single one of those integration users, but it's nice. And then, you know, if something gets updated on a page by Pardot, it says that the Pardot integration user did it. It doesn't say that you did it or that Squire did it or that I did it. It's very specifically calls out which integration caused the change. So,
So
nice and neat, but it's expensive.
well, but to justify that cost, I mean, there's definitely a difference between cost and investment. I know when I was an admin, I was, okay, time to add a new user. I would constantly have the fight of, I got to buy a couple more licenses. Why do you need to buy another license? Just, you know, deactivate the admin user. No. Here's what you are going to lose if we do that. Have documentation ready to justify why the investment in a license being dedicated to no one, like no one specifically, but to an integration user or to that default admin user or whatever. I mean, you could scour any number of admin best practice presentations out there to get your own documentation that just says, no, I'm going to have these reserved for those purposes, and here's why.
Yeah, and
yeah, I wish there was a license. I wish there was a license that you could say, like, this is like, that didn't cost as much as like a standard person's user license that could do that, but I don't think there is.
Oh, well,
an idea out there for that.
I can share what we're doing. So we have 5 integrations running through across about 9 different business units. And because it is so expensive, I was hoping you weren't going to say that, Becca. I thought you were going to tell me there was a cheap way to do it. What we did was we have a single integration license. And now with the new profile changes, we have a little bit more control of that security. But part of the integration is any record or any object we update with integration, we now have a field that tells it, not only was it updated by the integration user, but which integration did the change. And the integration actually updates that field. And it's only visible to admins. But now we can see, oh, it was the nightly trade batch. Oh, it was the data processor. Oh, it was whatever. And that way we don't have to build that license queue. Now, granted, we don't have the controls you described about because now one integration user has access to the entire org, but we can at least see what made the change last.
All right, Christy, your question was, it was for the admin leaving. That's what that was for. It was for the solo admin leaving. That's what that list was for. And so
Okay,
when I get that put together, I'll.
Well, and I thought it was, but in the 2 orgs, NewPen and YRC, with NewPen, Slalom kept charging us. And so all of a sudden IT went, they're done today. No, you can't call them anymore. And I'm like, wait, I'm brand new. And then with YRC, they got cut off like because of COVID. It was like all contractors totally cut off. Well, we found, and this is for Daniel too, we found test classes that hadn't been completed because work was midstream. So, you know, I'm figuring out, I've taken the level 1 Rad Women Code course, and I'm like, oh, now I have to go write 5 test classes. Oh my God. In 2 weeks later, shit, sorry.
You can do it, Christy, you can do it. I wrote a test class this week. I did it this
some
week.
of them were okay, but this one was a Visualforce page with custom because it was bringing in the Google map because it was a truckload quote. And I'm like, oh my God. And it kept, and I had to do, what do you call that thing where you're mock calling because it can't really call out. So anyway, that was hard. But there's a whole bunch, like, there needs to, and I begged my IT guy, no, boss, don't cut them off. We need 2 days because we have to wind it down right. So there's also a great list to be had when you're separating from your partner. What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did you finish the test classes? We found out the hard way when I inactivated the other admins, Nate Schilling being one of them. Oh, great, he built that dashboard and now he can't see it. Oh, I gotta clone the dashboard and clone the reports and then I can deactivate. I was like, damn it. So, that's why I was wondering, we almost need another thing that says how to separate the right way from your partner when it's coming to an end.
That is probably a consulting partner best practice list about how they ramp up and how they ramp off. That I don't know if that exists out there. I will tell you that a client I'm working with right now, they have a person that works for the company that is handling the admin tasks that she can handle. And so everything I can possibly set up under her is what I set up. So those dashboards, you know, view as this user, and my, or if there's any workflows or default users, it all points to someone at the company, not at me. So that makes it a little bit better. But those are best practices that I don't know if everybody would follows or considers, or, you know, I don't know.
When it happens to you twice, you want the list to follow to say, wait, before you get cut off, I need to go check all the test classes, and I need to make sure that I put all the reports in the name, you know, so.
For sure.
From an admin perspective, who's staying, that's all.
No, I agree. I've been on the other side of that coin also, and it actually made me a little bit bananas, because I was like, I have to contact the developer to find out what the heck happened with this, because X, Y, and Z. So having been on both sides of that coin, my best practices are different than maybe everyone else's. I don't know, but
there's probably a better perspective being on both sides. You can write the good perspective from both sides. So.
Like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that to myself, but you know, that's how it goes. So, good questions though. Good questions. Like Daniel, I have a note right here in my giant notebook. It says, you know, solo admin, you know, checklist. Like, what are things I need to look at? And then Christy, I'm also looking at, like, you know, how to prepare for an admin exit, really, because it's not just admins, it's whoever's been doing the configuring, and whoever's been doing is the running user or the default users and that sort of thing. And just kind of what to look for and what to prepare for is.
Yep.
I've got a note, because I'm gonna submit this to speak at Dreamforce. No, I'm kidding.
No, I think, but that's good. And here's the thing. So, well, here's the thing. It has to be an outside person giving how to properly separate from the partner when it's time, because you assume as psychologically that if it's coming from that partner you're working with, that it's all for them and not just general for absolutely anyone.
Right. It's really like the best practices around, like, scalability for that solo admin, right? And then, you know, just making sure you can hand an org off. Like, how do you hand an org off once once the consultant's done with their project? So it's all good.
Thank you.
I think we're at 2:00, so we need to wrap things up. I'm so glad we got to talk to everybody. Squire, we're all set, right? Is it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we'll get all the links and things that we posted out into the forums. There's some great tools and some great ideas here. So hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have some more conversation the same way. Actually, 4 weeks, right? 3 weeks, something like that.
All right. And you know what? If you want to follow me on Twitter, I will get that posted, because I'm sure I'll forget to post it back to MVP office hours, but I will definitely share it. So don't lose track of me. But I got homework. Gosh, you guys, I'm so mean. I have homework and it's June.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, yeah, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you. It's going to be 3 weeks, so it'll be June. What was our magic date? June 10th or July 10th. July 10th. So we'll see everybody July 10th. Have a safe holiday weekend this weekend and in 2 weeks. And I'll have a puppy maybe then by July 10th. Yay!
Todd, Daniel, Janet, everybody come back. We'll talk about all this stuff even more.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good weekend, folks. Bye.